This is Bam Electric Ghost. We're live on the air with Michael Gomoll for the first time. Welcome to the Family Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing this
I'm
afternoon?
doing great. Yourself?
Doing great. We love to talk to people live. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. And we've been podcasting since 2016. We live is our jam. We like to talk to people live and have a real, heart-to-heart conversation. Before we get to the heart of your story, we always ask every guest a couple questions. What motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
And those are the same. Both of those have the same answer. So what motivates me, and we'll find out as we talk, is I lost my son to epilepsy back in 2010. And so what motivates me is to try to keep other people, other families from going through what we had to go through. He suffered from a very rare form of epilepsy called Dravet syndrome. And so upon his passing, we decided it was up to us to try to do something, as we always say, to help the next family, right? So that's both what motivates me and that's what I do. I'm retired from professional life. And so this is now what I do. I raise money and try to fund research grants to help other people not kind of go through what my family had to go through.
Yeah, you got to pay it forward from your experience, because I think traumatic experiences, you tend to, kind of make people, they actually drive folks in different directions. And sometimes that becomes your purpose. Because I'm a cancer survivor at age 27. I had a stage 3 sarcoma, and I'm 58. So, and then now my wife is going through a blood cancer. So I have some empathy.
Yep.
I think it's like when you go through things, you can kind of take it as a lesson learned and then try to pay it forward.
I think so. I mean, there's obviously lots of ways for people, and there's no correct way to handle trauma or grief. You have to do the way that's most healthy for you. And for me, this just felt like the right way.
But the right thing. So you've been working with a lot of people, like in your write-up is like Grammy winners and the Rock and Roll famers, members of Cheap Trick, Guns N' Roses, Go-Go's, Bangles, Tears for Your Garbage. Like that's the kind of history if anybody's ever been into music, and I'm a musician, so I know all those bands. That's really interesting. So you've it's just interesting that you've been able to raise over $2 million, right?
Yep. Yeah.
With 10,000 over the last 2 years, right? For your event.
Yeah. It helps to have some famous friends. That makes it a little bit easier to raise money. Yes.
Yeah. So your story is overcoming the loss of a child, which is super traumatic. Yep. And some folks wouldn't know what to do.
Right.
But you kind of leaned into, you want to pay it forward and help other people who might go through it or prevent them from going.
And that's exactly right. That's the big hope, is that second one, right? We want to give people that are going through it now hope that there are people out there fighting for them, but we'd really like to stop people from having to go through it at all. So that's when I tried to sit down and think of a way to channel this into a positive. The music was. I did not do music as a career, but back in the 80s in college, I worked as a disc jockey and worked in a music club, and made some connections that way. And it just seemed like a good idea to me.
So that's how you got the synergy with the connections, because you had that.
My big connection was the fact that Butch Vig was kicking around Madison when I was back in the 80s. And for those of you that know, Butch went on to do Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins, and he's got his own band Garbage. So that was the most, the most direct connection, is having been a friend of Butch's for a long time, because that then gives me credibility with a lot of the other musicians that we go out and recruit.
Yeah. So it's like having a key person like Butch to be able to do that. Then you get sign on, people just like sign up because they like, okay, if Butch says it's cool. It's cool.
That's exactly right. He's like, if you're a door-to-door salesman and you go and say, your neighbor just bought one of these from me. Well, I get to say, that 3-time Grammy winning producer is my musical director. That gets me at least in the front door.
Yeah, right? It's credibility. It's like, you're gonna be able to book that hall. You're gonna be able to book that room. You're gonna be able to do it
and get those people.
That is.
Well, and the thing that's important about it too is, as we talk more about the events, all of these artists come and play for free. So I'm not paying any of these artists to come to freezing Madison, Wisconsin in January from their nice warm homes in Silver Lake and Los Angeles. So I got to have a pretty big credibility card, and Butch is certainly that.
Wow, so that's where you do it. That's
Yeah,
interesting. So,
yeah,
yeah, so you
yeah,
you gather in January in Madison, and they
yeah, and
volunteer, and they form a bunch of supergroups,
yeah,
which is always
they
cool.
come.
I like to see it.
And that's the thing, that's our hook. Well, the hook is the cause, obviously, but the shows, even though we mention all these bands, Goo Goo Dolls and Go-Go's and Bangles
Yeah.
and everything, they're coming and playing, forming bands throughout the night. They're not doing a 30-minute Bangles set or a 30-minute, they're
Oh,
doing an
it's kinda all
ACD
cross-pollinating.
and doing covers and doing all that kind of stuff. So they actually, it's really fascinating. They come to town a couple days ahead of time. So they're not just
Sure.
giving me a day or two. They're giving me 3 or 4 because they got to rehearse, right? They
Yeah,
they
they
go play
kinda
these songs.
decide what supergroups they're gonna configure and then what they're
Yeah,
gonna do.
and Butch kind of lays some of that out, and we spend the couple months leading up to it, going, "What do you want to sing? What do you want to play on?" And then we kind of do a mix and match. But that's really I think the reason why all these artists keep coming back, because as Butch
It's
likes to
fun.
say, it's like rock camp for adults, right? You get
Yeah,
to
well,
play
every
with people.
musician wants to challenge themselves. It's like, yeah, I mean, I'd like to play with Garbage. I'd like to play with the Goo Goo
Right?
Dolls. I'd like to play with the Sheep. It's if you like every musician admires other musicians, and
Correct.
it usually is influenced by other musicians. If they get the shot to actually play with another musician, it's like candy. It's like, yeah, I'll do that.
Well, you'd be amazed. We've got a beautiful dress. We do it at this venue here in Madison. We've got a beautiful dressing room and green room. Everybody spends the entire show at the side of the stage watching each other. They're
Yeah.
not back where all the good food and the beer and
Yeah,
everything
they
is.
wanna see that. They wanna see, like, how is this what does this guy do? Like,
Yeah,
how does she do that? How does he do that? Yeah, 'cause everybody's watching each other, you know? I've
they
read
are.
all these stories.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing was really fascinating this past year. I'm not a capable musician in the least, but so we had this past year, we had Matt Sorum, who's the drummer in Guns N' Roses and the Cult
Mhm.
and Velvet Revolver, and Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. And then we
Yeah.
also had Kurt Smith, Tears for Fears, right? Everybody
Oh,
wants to
yeah.
rule the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, it's
And
amazing. I love that.
Kurt needed somebody to play drums on it, and Matt desperately wanted to play
Got to
drums on
do
it. We
that.
had so that's my, there's this guy who's this heavy metal, the king of metal drummers,
He
Rock and
wants
Roll
to
Hall
play
of Famer.
a new wave song.
Exactly right. And to watch that interaction was just marvelous, just marvelous. So
Yeah,
yes, it
'cause
was
people
great.
always think that, like, these rockers are tied to their genre, but they get interested in
Mm-mm.
anything. They
Anything.
yeah, 'cause I was reading a story about Miles, how he used to, like, recruit for his super bands, and he would just, like, show up and have his sunglasses on, then he would take them off, and then he was like, he digs me, he took the glasses off.
Yeah, that was your signal. Yeah, yeah,
It's the thing
exactly.
was, like, Miles, they called you up, was like, "Can you record on Monday?"
Yeah.
He would call your people up on the phone with his raspy voice, he's like, "Yeah, yeah, I saw you. Can you record? We're gonna record on Monday. Can you show up?"
Yeah. And I've heard a million stories about like Prince about that too, right? You got
Yeah.
to be on call 24/7, and yeah, yeah,
Just show up.
it's
Yeah, he
amazing.
just boom, like, just do it, and people are kinda looking for you to be you, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
they know that your secret sauce is like, they're not gonna try to turn you into,
No.
like, Tears Are Fears into Guns N' Roses, like, no, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they wanna get into, like, what you're doing.
They want to cross pollinate, and you find out that almost all of these folks, while like you said, they have their genre or their lane, they love all music,
They
right?
love
I mean,
everything.
everybody started in a bar band or a garage
Yeah.
band, and so you had to play whatever would fill the
Everything.
dance floor at the local high school, right? So,
Everybody knows everybody's tunes and everybody's like,
right.
you might have your lane, but you're always into everything. So I think that's super cool
Yeah.
that they're gonna want to do this like every year for forever, you know?
These people, honestly, they keep. I don't mean to say these people, but I don't know how else to phrase them. The artists keep coming back. I don't even have to, literally, don't have to ask
They
anymore.
probably like
It's
wanna
like
know, is it gonna be the same time?
that. You're more right than you know. You are more right than you know.
That's awesome.
So
So
yeah,
like we
it's
get
it's
back,
a really fun of it.
but you get to your like this whole idea, when you do this, like the whole emphasis is epilepsy and maybe like people not understanding it. So
Correct.
part of your like when you pull together the funds for this program is a lot of it about education. It's about like what you should do, what you shouldn't do, what you should know, what you should like understand.
Yeah, it's about so unlike a lot of other charity events where you're having a walk or a gala or a golf tournament, most of the people are coming to that because they're already involved in the, if you're going to go to a gala about cystic fibrosis, it's probably affected you, or a cancer walk or an Alzheimer's walk
Yeah,
or any of that. We get a lot of people that walk through the door that because they're fans of all of these bands, and that's kind of the unique thing about what we do, right? It's been, I wouldn't be surprised if half the people that walk through the door have no idea what the charity's about, but they do by the time they leave. So
10%. Yeah.
besides raising the money, besides putting on a really unique one of a kind event, people are walking out hopefully a little less afraid of epilepsy and a little less scared by what it could be, should be, would be, if they ran into it. So we're really fortunate that we've kind of come up with this potpourri of effects from this putting on this show. And one of them is a Guns N' Roses fan might come to see Matt Sorum play drums, and he walks out seeing Matt Sorum play drums, but he also understands what to do if somebody has a seizure, so.
Yeah, because that's what a lot of people don't understand, diseases. And there's
That's
like
right.
there's like fear. Because I'm a cancer
Oh,
survivor.
yeah.
What was amazing to me, I was like 27, and there were friends around me that they could not handle it, and they
Right.
disappeared. And
Yep.
and I can imagine, cancer is different than epilepsy, but this the idea people get scared of diseases. They
Right.
don't know what to do. And some of my friends
That's
they
right.
just couldn't handle it. So if you
Yep.
have something like epilepsy and you don't understand, anything about it, there's just the
Right.
fear factor takes over and you get uncomfortable and people don't like to be uncomfortable. They like to feel safe. They like to feel like they don't feel like, you know, drawn into it.
Right.
So they don't want to get drawn. They think about their own mortality. They think about their own situation and they kind of put that on it rather than
Yep.
having like the empathetic lens and try to understanding lens. So it's education to try to get people to be less fearful, more
That's
understanding,
right.
more empathetic.
Well, and the other side of it too, especially with something like epilepsy, is what they don't want to, they're afraid to be around if someone does have a seizure. What if I do something wrong? What's it going to be like? And I mean, there are some illnesses that are obvious if you are a paraplegic or you have, muscular dystrophy. But if you have cancer or if you have epilepsy, you wouldn't see that in somebody. And,
Yeah,
so it either has to be talked about or you don't know. So it creates a strange dynamic. But certainly I know with the seizures, people are, oh my God, what if I'm the one that's there with so-and-so and he or she has a seizure? What do I do? So yes, you're absolutely right. It creates some tension and a strange dynamic sometimes.
Yeah, and it needs to be more public education or just
Yep.
understanding because people were taught about choking in the
Right.
Heimlich
Right.
maneuver. There was a
Yep.
whole thing. I'm a child of the '70s when suddenly people
Yeah.
talking about the Heimlich maneuver instead of just letting people choke. They,
That's
they,
right.
it's like
Yeah.
maybe you should do something, and this is what
Do
you should do.
Yeah, if the only thing you can do is call 911, maybe you should educate yourself a little bit, kind of
Yeah,
stuff,
get
and
better. Yeah,
just learn the basics. Nobody's asking everybody to be an expert, but understand what to do, and that's a big part of it. That many of the other organizations in the epilepsy community is teaching teachers and police officers and all the people that may be the first on the
first to
scene
show
if
up. Yeah,
somebody's having a seizure, what to do, because they're cops and teachers are and firefighters and are people too, right? They can get scared, and
yeah.
so just letting them understand what you can do is really important. And that's again one of the side benefits to ours. And a lot of people, some of the musicians that play have a relation to epilepsy. There's a couple that actually have epilepsy. There's some that have family members that do. And so
Oh, yeah.
they on stage speak to it. And
Mhm.
what we
That
need to
helps
do
a
is
lot.
we need to normalize it, like, oh, okay, this isn't some strange thing over here, this is a thing,
Yeah, that's
so
they people hiding again. I know folks. There's some folks that just want musicians or athletes to just play,
yeah,
shut up
shut up
and
and
play.
play, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so when you try to go and talk about something, it's like, "Well, I don't wanna get into that." But, life is not just one track,
That's right.
And
And
sometimes it's like, yeah, it's not. I don't think it's off putting. Some people might feel it's off putting, but I
right.
think some folks is like, you have to. You live in the world. The world's
Yeah.
not just one lane. It's multiple
Well,
lanes.
and like you went through and we went through, one day everything's normal and the next day your world has changed. And just because, to the person sitting over there, just because everything's been going great up until today,
Yeah,
diagnoses come out of nowhere sometimes. And instead of, just face it, understand it, because there's a lot of people, and especially the world you come from with cancer, there's a lot of people that don't get tested because they don't want to hear the answer to it. What if the answer is
yeah,
bad? Well, what if
yeah,
the answer is bad 3 years from now and you could have done something, so
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
You have to be like I was lucky that I paid attention to the signs
Yep.
and being 27 years old, and I was already a diabetic, so I was used to going to the doctor. So I knew that if I saw
Yeah.
something weird, I should actually
Yeah.
report it. But a lot of people, they see something and they don't want to deal with it. They they
That's
they
right.
don't want they it's like they get so scared of it that
Right.
it just lingers and lingers and
Yeah.
lingers to it. Like and then you're like you say it's like you could have caught that 3 years ago, but you were so scared of it, and now it's like a little too much too late. It's like
Yeah,
you really
now
have.
we can't do. Yep, exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's why awareness is a really important part of all of this, this culture that we're in, is to make sure that people know and understand and know what to do and what not to do, whether it's for themselves or a loved one.
Mhm. So like when you have like live shows and people
Mhm.
today, there's a lot of tools where people can kind of mitigate live shows. But I always thought the danger of a live show is like it's live.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh
That
yes. I can tell you some stories.
so it's like if you is there do you guys like to rehearse like super like tight, or do you like to see the
No,
happy accidents?
yeah, it's the second. We don't have the time to rehearse it super tight. I mean, the good news is these guys are picking fairly common songs, right? Beatles,
They
Stones,
should know. They
AC/DC,
should know.
Sly
Yeah.
Stone, that kind of stuff. So it's Gad Dad, it's three chords kind of stuff for the most part. And they've got charts and we've got, monitors so people can see the words and everything. We really don't have the time to do it. And it is the fun, because I think one of the things that is appealing about being in the audience for one of our shows is you get to see these artists, the eye contact and
Yeah.
interacting and,
Yeah, that's half being a musician. Yeah, being a
yeah,
musician, it's the nonverbal language. There's a lot of
right,
nonverbal stuff when you're a musician. Like you're looking at the drummer, you're looking at the bass player, you're looking at the horn. Like you give people cues. Like if you're the leader
right,
and
right.
you kind of you start working out cues. It's like, well, if I do this, if I put up two,
Yeah.
if I do like
Yeah.
when you guys in a band, like you've worked out your cues. So
Yeah,
you like
that. Yeah. Exactly.
and
That's
then
exactly right. And you see, and especially if somebody's really killing it, right? You kind of give them the nod of go again,
yeah, keep
keep
on going.
going. That's a great,
It's like
that's a
that
great
kind of
show.
jazz fusion thing. Like you can have a structure, but if
Right.
something really cool happens,
Right.
screw the structure. We're gonna go with what
Right.
like this guy's on fire. We're gonna follow the
Let
fire. We're gonna let it keep on going. We ain't gonna put it out.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. Well, and the other thing that happens with our format is often there's 3 or 4 guitars. So, because, that's just the nature of it. Everybody's out there playing and the audience wants to see these people. So if you've got 2 or 3 people where normally you have a lead guitarist in most things, if you've got 2 or 3 people that can do leads, all of a sudden you might get a little, competition in a friendly
Yeah,
way going.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's when the magic happens.
You get that kind of Lynyrd Skynyrd dual guitars, or
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
yeah, you get the like. I love the dual guitar type of sound that you get from like Dwayne Allman, Eric Clapton, like
Yep.
Layla type stuff. Like when people
Yep.
do the dual things, like even Allman's used to do the dual. But like
Oh,
if you have triple, when you have three
right.
guys doing it,
Yeah.
then it just it's
And
fantastic because and even same with thing with like really expansive jazz bands that have
that's right.
multiple like horns going on. Yeah,
That's right.
the kind of interplay between the saxes and and the trumpets and all the and then maybe they have a clarinet or a flute in there. It's like, yeah, just that what you can do handing it off.
It's
And
almost like a call and response. I do
Yeah,
this,
he can
now
do
you do that. I do this, you do that. Oh yeah. And so to answer your question, we don't have the luxury of rehearsing, but I'm not sure, rehearsing in depth. I'm not
yeah,
sure we would want that. But then again, it's amazing. These people are so talented and they've been doing it for a long time. They run through it once, and
and
they
they can
may stop and
yeah,
go, and they may say, on the third one, we're going to come in right after the bridge. And it stays in their brain, and they know
yeah,
it
and
3 hours later when they're actually going to play it. It's amazing.
yeah, with like professional musicians, like once they get out there and they're around other guys that are really like everybody's at the top of their game, then you
Yeah,
can
that's
play
right.
what they play pretty much. Unless
That's
you
right.
get an ego guy that's like, oh, it's gotta be like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you get
No,
the guy that's
the,
just gotta
yeah.
be like that, he keeps on wanting to stop and start. It's like, no, 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 no.
Yeah, the good news is we don't, and most of the people that are willing to do what, give me a week in Wisconsin in January aren't the kind that are going to do that. But the other thing I think that takes some pressure off of these people is nobody has to carry the show, right? The audience is there to see them all, right? And so nobody's got the pressure of, oh man, if I screw up this solo, or if I don't get the words right, that's not the vibe. So everybody's
Yeah,
down a notch in a good way, you
you
know.
play it like Dylan. Dylan used to reinvent his lyrics all the
Oh,
time.
every night he still
Every
does.
night he still does it. Like, I got how many
Yeah,
different versions of Idiot wins? I got like probably 10
absolutely.
versions. I got 10
Abs-
versions. We got totally different verses. Like, I
yeah,
think that's
and so,
cool.
oh, if I know the bands that I love, and I would love that if they would mix that up.
It's really cool. That's what
I'm a
people
fan
wanna
of
see.
them.
You go see
That's
guys
right.
can see like Zappa and the Mothers, right? You go see
Yeah, right,
Funkadelic.
right,
Like every
right,
night they were like change it up, and that's the point.
right.
And Zappa says
And
like I can play it the same every night, but that's boring. I'm not gonna
yeah,
do
then just put the record on, right? Yeah,
it. Why am
right.
I gonna do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree 100%. And that's really the magic in our format, is that it gives people and again, to say it again, that's why I think these artists keep coming back. And that's why the
The
community
audience.
comes every year, because
Yeah,
what are we going to see this year? What's going to
yeah,
happen this year?
yeah. In the age of AI, we got all these tech bros saying that you don't need
Yeah,
artists, you don't need
right.
musicians because I can go and
Yeah,
just pump it through some algorithm. I'm like,
right.
people don't want a pumped algorithm. They want a
No.
pumped crowd in listening to real musicians.
and and
That's
and
what you
seeing
want.
and seeing that give and take, and seeing especially for those of us that aren't particularly gifted musically, to see that magic of actually the fingers on the
Move
fret,
it.
or
Yeah,
the drumsticks moving. There's a beauty in that
yeah.
you
There's
can't.
always gonna be a beauty in that. I people are saying, "Oh, all the" my daughter's a graphic artist. And there's all these
Oh,
people saying, "Oh, everybody's using
yeah,
prompts," but she gets
yeah,
tons of logo work
right,
because all these prompt-driven AI stuff is like they don't give a client their secret sauce. Like, the
right,
secret sauce is, "I want a logo that I can use, it's my IP, it's my company." If you
right.
run it through an
and
AI,
and
everybody gets the same thing, and that's not what
and
you want.
that's And that's the point. You can tell immediately now when somebody's put something up and said, do a cartoon of me and and you know immediately what you're going to get. We've all seen it's with the big Disney eyes and
It's
that
all the
whole
same
thing.
thing. It's like eventually it
Yeah.
becomes like, junk food art and junk food music. People
Yeah,
want like the reason they go see, a Springsteen, or they still see Dylan, or
yeah,
they go see Neil Young,
right,
is because
right,
they go out there and they just have that power, they have that energy, right? They go out
right.
there and they do it, and Neil never does it the same. He does it like he does
No.
how whatever he wants to do. Like that's the way
And
it's
that
gonna be, and people like expect it.
well, and that's it. And that again, that's the beauty of the live event. I think.
Yeah, that's what you want. Is that you don't want somebody just playing backing tracks and locked
No.
into the song just like it was on the master. Like, why would
Right.
I want to see that? Like,
Right.
what?
That's
Like,
what. That's why you put it. That's why people release albums.
yeah, that's
Right.
why
You can
everyone
listen
would
to
go
it
see
note for
Pearl
note.
Jam 3 nights in a row because Eddie keeps on shifting the lyrics and
Right.
changing the way he approaches it. Because that's why the Pearl Jam fan will go see the same show 3 nights in a row. Because
Right.
Eddie does different every night. The
Yep.
band
Yep.
does different every night. That's what you want. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why people, I don't believe all these tech guys saying, "Oh, all the art's gonna be in compute." It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah. No. No. You can't. You just can't. And I don't want to live in a world if that's where it's going. It's
No,
no
I think
fun.
it's gonna be a revolt because 'cause they've been checking kids, and kids are listening to stuff from the '80s and the '70s and the
Yeah.
'60s. And
Yeah.
why are they doing that? Because it's
Right.
real.
Right.
They're
Right.
listening, and you listen to those recordings, they have errors in them. I don't think they're
Right.
errors, I think they're happy accidents. I think it's like a
Yeah.
paintbrush. You put the paintbrush to the canvas, and that's what it is. You gotta deal with it. And I
That's
think in the
that's
old
right.
world on tape, you could go and cut it around, but it's like once you put it down, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And you kinda
Yeah.
work with it. But in the age of the undo and the digital,
Right.
you can
Right.
kind of wreck yourself because
Right.
then you're trying to spend so much time trying to make it perfect, realizing that take 4 was the best take. And take
Right.
101, you destroyed the song
Right.
because you're
By
trying to
then
make it
there was
perfect.
no spontaneity, no
There's no
life.
passion. Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe you're scared to take 4, but you should be scared because that's what it should be.
Right. 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 And there were a lot of artists, and you've named a bunch of them in Neil and Dylan and that are on that. If I don't get it by the third or fourth take, I'm not going, because then it's not going to get any
That's the worst.
better.
It's gonna
It's
get
not
worse.
going to get any better. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely
that's like
agree.
the people today, the perfectionist trap is like
Yeah.
you spend like 6 months on one song
Right.
when you coulda how many songs could you write? Like you could
Yeah.
be more like a Prince, like you write 10,000 songs. You know,
Right.
like are you gonna be so obsessive about
Right.
every little detail, or are you just gonna put it down? Put it
Right.
down and let it
When
be.
when is when is when is good enough good enough? Right.
Yeah, because I mean,
That's
you're your own
right.
worst critic when you're an artist.
Of
And a lot of
course.
times, like, the thing you think is the worst thing is, like, the best thing. So a lot of times
Absolutely.
you just gotta put it down, and then, when you have an opportunity to play live, it's those happy accidents that can I would think that that drives those artists to maybe go and work on something they didn't even think they were gonna wanna work on.
How many?
Then they
Yeah.
cross collaborate and say, "Hey, yeah, maybe we should do something."
How many stories have you heard of artists finding something during a sound check,
Oh,
or
yeah,
somebody finds a riff when they're just warming up, right?
messing around.
And that's what leads to it, right? REM did that whole album, the one Adventures in Hi-Fi.
Yeah, it was
That's
on the
not
road.
the right
They
one.
would that
It
was,
was
like,
all
all
on the
over the
road in
road.
sound checks. Yeah,
Yeah,
right. And
that's the
and
best
and
way.
that, yeah, I think so too. I think so too. Yeah,
'Cause
I
Joe
agree
Walsh,
with
he
you.
came up with that great like one of his great licks. He was just playing around with like a fingering exercise that he was
Yeah.
doing for just like dexterity and like warm up. And then like
Yep.
then the rest of the band looked at him and was like, "That's a song." He's, "Oh, that's just an
Yeah.
exercise." No, that's a song.
Yeah. What's that? You should do it. Yeah. And
Just do
that's
it.
right. And computers don't have happy accidents. When computers have accidents, it shuts down. When people have
Yeah,
those
yeah,
accidents, it leads to something genius.
yeah. But I think it's such a positive thing that you're putting out this work to fight epilepsy with music. You're allowing the artist to kind of be pure artist, which is why artists want to do it. Because artists
Yeah.
will, most artists I know, they will do something whether they're getting paid or not, right? And then it
Right.
just you figure it out at the end. But it's like a lot of times the reason they do it because they just love they got to keep on playing until they can't play. I mean, that just
Right.
tends to be the way it works, unless you're not really into it for that
Right.
reason. If you're trying
Right.
to be one of those guys that always gets a hit, okay,
Right.
that's
Right.
that's not exactly what most artists are doing.
No, no, they're not. I think the other thing that comes into play here too is that a lot of we've built this into a community, but a lot of them know of each other, but don't know each other. So it's like, oh, I'd like to play with so and so, or
Yeah,
I'd like
yeah,
to, do that kind of stuff. So it's like I said in the beginning of this, it's all a really happy accident that has turned into something really glorious.
have
And
you
that's
ever
because
filmed it?
oh yeah, we've got all the shows are on film, and throughout the year we will release clips from the previous year's show. So,
Do you
um,
offer them as, like, DVDs or Blu-rays? Or you put
well,
them
we
up on your
can't be we can't because of copyright and licensing.
Oh, so you
It's
can't get past that, they won't give you a
but
break?
yeah, but no, it's too arduous now. But we can post the stuff online as long as we're not trying to make money off of it, which we're not. So
You're not trying to
that's
pull
not a
hair.
problem. So so we can do that. But that's kind of what we do during the year. We just released one on our social media, all Joey song, like you've got on the screen here, and we'll release a particularly meaningful one or fun one or something where something went wrong kind of stuff, so people can really see that it's light and fun and amazing. But no, we've recorded almost the first couple, we only audio recorded, but in the last 7 or 8 years, we've got them all on video. We shoot them with multi-camera and everything, because it's hard to describe to people what our event is, and the only way to show them is to show them, right? And that's a good way to
cool
do
if
it.
you could actually get it on one of the streamer services and get them to get past all the licensing stuff and
Yeah.
some way
We,
to work it out.
we're slowly but surely working on that. We do live stream it the nights of the show, so you don't have to be in Madison, Wisconsin on that
Oh, you
night to
do?
see it.
Oh, that's cool.
So we do live stream it, but then once you're replaying it, it now becomes recorded music, and it's covered by all the rules and regulations of that. But
Yeah, you think
yeah,
'cause you're a charity, somebody ought to give you, like, a break and get some lawyers to, like, work it out.
and they might, but what you probably need is you need somebody at the major publishing houses that in like 2 phone calls can take care of it, because people are either ASCAP or BMI, and you can probably work that out.
Call those 2 guys and work it out, and they could play a 2-hour
yeah,
meeting and work it out.
yeah, yes, I'm sure they could. I'm sure they could.
Well, that's cool because,
Yeah.
because if you actually get that work, when you do it live online, do people pay tickets that way, or they contribute?
They make donations. So they make a donation. We have merch that we sell like everybody else.
Like t-shirts and buttons and
t-shirts and mugs and all the stuff that everybody has. We also do, one of the things we're really lucky is, because of everybody we know, we do a guitar auction. So we have signed guitars from this past year. We had Eddie Vedder's a friend of the organization.
Oh, wow.
Cheap Trick, Def Leppard, Brad Paisley. I'm forgetting it, but it's actually a pretty easy ask, because one of the things that's a little bit backwards on how we do stuff is, now that I've kind of got some good connections, I'm not just asking them to come to Madison, I'm asking them to come on a specific weekend, and not everybody can do that, right? Because they just got done touring, or that's January's family time, or whatever it is. But it's real easy to ask. Tell you what, if I send you a couple guitars, will you sign them? That's a real easy ask, right? And so they're able to do that. I was just, not to be Mike the name dropper, but I will. I was just talking a couple weeks ago with the Duran management, and she might, they might be able to come, they might not. Right now they might be touring, but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, it's an easy ask. I said, well, even if they can't, can I send you some guitar? Because we'll make $3,000-$4,000 on a signed guitar, easy.
Yeah, because people are, the people who are into these bands, they're totally like into it. Like, it's interesting. Duran, I'm a child of the 70s and MTV. And I'm a synth head. You see all my synths behind. I'm like Junos and stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah. I used to be, as a kid, like looking at what they were playing, and trying to see, can I find that in the junk shop? Can I find it? Can I find one of those boards that somebody messed up? Can I go and fix it? And I was just totally drawn into a lot of that stuff, because it was like a big mixture back in the day, like on MTV. Because you see it like the Clash, you see like a Joy Division, you see Duran, you see Michael Jackson, you see all these very different types of bands. And I was just a fan of music. I just like music. So I don't care.
Well, and it's what folks like you and I grew up with, when there was really top 40 radio, and that was about it. I mean, now you can, stream, so you only hear the kind of, you had to, back in the day, you had to listen to top 40, because they'd play Thin Lizzy, and then they'd play Donna Summer, and then they'd, you hop all around.
Play Motown or something,
Right. And so you'd get exposed to that. And that's what MTV back was in those days too, because there weren't, especially those early years, there weren't that many videos out there. Right. And so you had to take, and that's what created a lot of that mixture that went on in those days. It was great.
I think it's interesting that people now are looking for that variation. There's a lot of folks I see, like my daughter's like 25, and she's all over the map. One day she's listening to the Carpenters. Next day,
Yep.
she listened to some punk band or
Yep.
emo thing or some
Yep.
EDM, and it's like it's everywhere. It's like, she's not just hip hop. She likes,
Right.
new wave. She likes, listen to Johnny Cash. She'll
Yep.
listen to anything, and it's like this education is like, "Oh, wow, that's Pink Floyd? That's
Right.
Yes? That's
Right.
Genesis? That's
Right.
what they do?" It's like, "Oh, you can
Yeah.
have a song that goes more than 2 minutes? You can
That's
have a song with the
that,
whole album side?" It's like, yeah,
that's
it's like,
yeah.
jazz that kinda taught us to that, but, some
Yeah.
kids are getting into that now too. They're like, "Oh, Coltrane? Yeah,
Yeah.
Coltrane." Yeah, like, yeah, Monk.
Well,
Yeah,
and there's a negative in our ability to only listen to what we want to do and have everything we've ever wanted on this device that we have. But the positive is it's much easier to discover new music right away than it would have been back in the day. If somebody says to you, you gotta listen to Coltrane, or you gotta listen to if you haven't listened to Kind of Blue, you haven't listened to music yet.
yeah,
Back in
yeah.
the day, it was like you make a note and maybe,
You
in
gotta
a
go
week when you
find
go to
it.
the record store or whatever. Now it's like, what was the name? I mean, my son's 24 and he's a musician, and we'll talk about music, and I'll say, you know what, you should, and within 8 seconds, he's listening to
He's
that.
going
And
and listen to it. But I
that's the
think that's
beauty of
really
it.
cool for a really hardcore music fan that's not into just, like, cliff notes, that actually,
Right,
when they go listen to, like, Kinda Blue, they're gonna listen to the whole thing, you know?
right.
They get the Sun Ra and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna actually listen to the
Yeah,
whole orchestra. I'm gonna listen to what they do." Um,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's like people just it's like a sponge. Like, when
It
you're
it
like an artist type, you're a sponge. If you're like a fan of artists, you don't just hear the single, you want the album. You want
you want to know what's behind it.
background. You wanna know what other band they were in. You wanna know
Right.
what other band is like them, or they was
Well,
influenced by them.
yeah, the other thing that I've found that's really great with my daughter's 26 and my son's 24 is back when they were younger, and they would watch shows like Glee and all of these shows that were covering old songs, and then go, no, you got to go listen to the original, right?
Yeah,
You
listen
you
to the
you think
original, yeah.
you think that version of Somebody to Love is great? Go listen to Freddie, right? Or
Yeah, yeah.
whatever it might be. And because a lot of these the pop artists do a lot of covers of old songs, and it's like, yep, that's good, but now go listen to what the Temps did with that, or
Yeah, and I'm
whatever
even
it might
finding, like,
be.
hip hop kids finding the sample and actually
That's right.
finding the band and actually
That's
going,
right.
"Oh, that's Steely Dan? Oh,
Yeah.
Steely Dan's about that?" It's like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
love Steely Dan." So I found all these hip hop kids that didn't realize, yo, Kanye sampled a Steely Dan song, and then suddenly they
Right.
like, "Steely Dan, that's a jam." It's like all these kids you would have never thought, these hip hop kids
Never.
would
Yeah.
listen.
That's
Yeah, now they're going through and listen to all the Steely Dan records all the way through. And I'm like,
Yeah,
"Wow."
that's old head music. I'm not listening to that old head music, right? And then they go, "Oh yeah, that was pretty good." Yeah. They got
It's
to
pretty
remember
cool.
all of us old heads were young heads at one time, you know.
Yeah, it's just the fact that you get drawn into music. To me, music,
Right.
like, draws you in like a great novel. When you
Right.
have a great musician and you go see him live, then you get totally, like, entranced, you get enthralled, and then when you see the dynamic, what's going on when you have multiple artists making super bands.
Right.
I love, like, the ideas of super bands. I was always
Yeah.
looking for bands that would go and do that in this, 60s and 70s, people kinda
That's right.
cross-pollinate, create these super groups and,
Yep.
go on stage and do some, like, songs for the Bangladesh, or they go show up in some
Yep.
place, and then they create these, like, Woodstock, you have these moments
Yeah,
where
that's right.
people get together and you're like, "Wow, yeah, that's what you want."
That that like I said, that cross pollination. We have one of our regulars is a guy named Jody Stevens, who was is a drummer in the band called Big Star, which never
Yeah,
had a whole lot
Big
of.
Star. I'm a
Yeah,
big fan of Big Star. I love
yeah,
Third, I love Number One
yeah,
Record, I like all of it.
yeah. And Jody comes every year, and we always do a couple Big Star songs. But the other artists, are more excited to go out, even if they're just doing the finger snaps into the microphone or the ooh
Just to
ahs
be
in the
on
back.
Well,
To
everybody
be,
Big Star is kinda like the Velvet Underground for those in the
that's
know.
right.
Like,
That's
everybody
right.
that listens to Big Star made a band. Just like
Right.
everybody
Yeah.
listened to the Velvets when to create a band, because Alex Chilton and,
Right.
he was awesome. And it's
Yes.
like what he was able to do on those 3 Big Star records,
Yep.
Third is, like, unbelievable, but, like, I am
Yep.
totally enthralled with them because I like the idea that power pop coming from the South.
Yeah, that's right.
British
And
power pop.
I've been fortunate. I've gone down to Memphis with Jody, and he gave me a private tour of Ardent, and to go there, and
Arden, yeah,
there's, I
Arden
mean,
Studios, yeah.
Stevie Wonder recorded there, and Stevie
Yeah, I
Ray
saw the
Vaughan and Led
documentary. I watched that
Zeppelin.
documentary. They have a
Yeah,
documentary about the band, and it's
yeah,
like it's just so amazing.
yeah.
And it was so, you know, I've always been drawn to like bands that somehow were ahead of their time.
Yep,
You know, like the Velvets, the Big
yep,
Star, you know, Sun
yep,
Ra. You know, people
yep.
now everybody says, "Oh, Sun Ra's the thing." It's like really, he wasn't. You know, they weren't thinking he was the
Yeah,
thing when he was doing it. but but
that's exactly right.
but yeah, to me, because like sometimes the people are a little ahead of the curve.
That's
And then
right.
suddenly it's like you're a little late to the party, and then you figure it out. It's like Dylan in '66 when he went
Right,
electric. He's a little ahead of the curve
right.
by '72. You know, when
Yep,
you get to you know, he's doing like the hurricane and doing those big tours. Everybody was
yep.
into it. He
Yep.
was doing
Yeah.
like same type of sound in
Yeah,
'66.
nobody was calling him Judas in
Yeah,
72
nobody's
anymore,
yelling
right?
that. Yeah, I have that on
Yeah.
tape. I got that out. But yeah, yeah, you're doing. I don't believe you. He's like, I don't believe
Yeah,
you. Kept on
that's
going.
right. That's right.
That's what
That's
that's what
right.
you
But
gotta
that
do.
is yeah, but that's that super group mentality, especially on the right songs that everybody relates to. That, as you've said a couple times, is the beauty
Yeah,
of
it's
it,
like the
because
last waltz. It's kind of like the
right,
last waltz.
exactly, the perfect example of it. Perfect example of it. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah, because we had Joni
absolutely.
Mitchell showed up with Neil Young in the
And
band.
Van
Y
Morrison,
Yeah,
and yep,
Morrison, Bob, they're all out there doing that, and they pulled in some of the guys that the band knew growing up, you
yep,
know, some of the guys that they were into. But yeah, it's like I love seeing stuff like that. I want more musicians to you know, do that cross pollination
yeah,
across multiple genres, because I think that's
and
where
yeah.
like, things happen. That's where you get new stuff.
Yeah, and cross generational stuff too. Because I mean, now we've got there's a young guy that from up northern Wisconsin that comes. His name is Kenny Hoopla, and he's a big rapper kind of
Mhm.
guy. He worked with Travis Barker from one of those number bands, some 41 or Blink 182 or whatever.
Oh,
I
like
don't know
trying to
them
do on
all.
those, yeah.
Yeah, and he comes, and then we've got Jody Stevens and Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick on the other end, right?
Big Star, yeah, but that's power
we got the
pop at the
seven.
top.
And then we got 72-year-olds, and we got 31-year-olds, and it's just
Well, that's dynamic.
that's when the fun starts. That's when the
Yeah, it's
fun
super
starts.
cool because I think that's
Yeah,
I'm very enthusiastic about what you're doing, and it's such a
yeah,
good cause because, like, you're trying to allay people's, like, you know, people are a little sensitive, they're a little gun shy when it comes to dealing with, critical, you know, illnesses,
yep,
like, people have a hard time. I tell you, my cancer experience, I found people like I was very surprised. You know, you're middle, you're stage 3 cancer, and then somebody of your best friends, like, they just disappear, and you're like,
right,
"Wow, how'd that
right,
happen?"
right. Well, you know, one of the phrases that people say now in another term is safe spaces, but I think that's what we create with our shows. And I've had people come up afterwards and say, because when you're dealing with one of these diseases, you can feel very alone, even if your
Mm,
friends haven't, because you kind of, you know, gather the horses, you know, and cover the wagons and, you know, hunker down. And to all of a sudden come in a room, the venue that we out holds 2,500 people. So you're with 2,000 people, and everybody's talking freely about epilepsy, and everybody's talking
yeah,
about
it makes
their
you feel good,
experience
yeah,
with it. And it's like, okay, I'm not alone. You know, these
yeah,
people
this is
can't
who
make my epilepsy go away tonight, but they can make me feel better about my journey and what I'm going through. And to see the Bangles talking about epilepsy, or to see the Go-Go's, or Johnny Resnick
yeah,
from Goo Goo
seeing these,
Dolls.
like, stars talk about and making
Yep.
you feel like you don't have to go and hide in the corner. You don't have to be
There,
like the person in the back corner, like, you
that's
know,
right.
sometimes folks wanna make people feel that way,
That's right.
and
Well, because it's what you said earlier. It makes people uncomfortable. That's a perfect way to say it. They're scared of, they don't know what to do or what could happen, and so it's just easier if we could just make those people go away. And that's the last thing that somebody that's going through the trauma of this
yeah,
needs
you know,
to
they need a
feel.
community. You need people to come together, have some empathy, have some understanding, and to take the time to know about your neighbor. You know, if your
That's
neighbor
right.
is going through it, instead of saying you don't want to see them going through it because it makes you feel uncomfortable, maybe you
Yep.
need to take a little like looking glass self review of
Yep.
yourself and say, is that about me
Yeah.
more than it's about them? And maybe I
Right.
need to make a little shift to become more of a human being.
That's right. Well, and as Bill Withers said, sometime we're all going to need somebody to lean on, and if you can't be there when somebody needs to lean on you, then karma may not have somebody when you need them. So just
Yeah,
your time
yeah.
might be next. So just go with what Still Bill said, and be there for somebody.
Well, we've got your, QR code up there, which we
Yep.
had it up there. I want people to understand how that works. That's a modern idea. We've got your links below, but if you take your phone and you scan it, it'll bring you right to your, joeysong.org, and
Yep.
that's the quickest way to get into this. So if people scan that, does that give them everything they need to know about your organization?
Yep, that gives you everything you need to know. And then there's links to all of our social media, which is where in about a month, we'll start announcing the artists for 2027. But to get back to what you and I were talking about, there's also the link for YouTube on there. So if you want to see some of the performances from past shows. So yes, all of that stuff is on the website. You just follow the little icons and the links and it'll get you there. And it also shows where the money goes. So you understand that, which is important too.
Yeah, because it's super important to understand, charity is something that a lot of people should support, especially when they start to understand what it's about, and then you give educational, talk about it during the event. You let people understand what it is.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yeah,
do you have
that's the
like
idea.
screens or something up
Oh
that you
yeah,
show things?
screens, and we have handouts. We've got posters around the venue with epilepsy facts, and we've got a couple of the local organizations that provide awareness and support have tables set out. So,
Table set up so
we,
people get pamphlets to get information, or maybe sign up to
and
become volunteers, or and get
yep,
more
yep,
involved.
yep, that's exactly right. We're trying to recreate the same community in the front of the house that we are up on stage. And now after doing this for a dozen years or so, we've got some regulars that come back every year and there's some little communities forming. And that's the whole idea. It's about giving hope.
Yeah, so that's like your long range plans today, like get it maybe on streaming more than maybe just
Yeah.
the initial night, and
Yeah.
keep it going. Are you just gonna keep it in Wisconsin, or are you gonna think to maybe bring it on the road?
That's people ask that. I would love to take it on the road. I don't think we can take it in its current format on the road because it's like taking Ringling Brothers Circus on the road, with everybody and getting all the schedules. But as I kind of told you a little bit earlier, if we switch the model a little bit and said, can you, big rock star, come and play a benefit for us? And they give us an anchor date, we could probably get a few people to come and join. We've mentioned some of those names. Eddie's been a good friend of ours and has
Yeah,
helped us in a
anybody would
number of
do it,
ways.
yeah, if you
Yeah,
yeah.
and he hasn't been able to come to Madison, but we're going to get you, Ed. But if we said to Ed, we want to do something in Seattle or
Then you
Hawaii, all the
invite to do it,
places where
yeah.
Ed lives, then he might say, "Yeah, I'm going to be home." We the whole idea is to raise as much money as we can, so we put it into the research so we can end this as soon as possible. So
Mhm.
I don't think we can do this format on the road, but we'll keep growing because we want to make this accessible to everybody. I'd like everybody to be able to help us financially.
Yeah, I think it's super cool to, like, you have the, online thing that makes it accessible for people
Yep.
streaming, checking that out. Because I know they got people who are, like, homebound, they can't get out,
That's
and
right.
so they give
Especially
people.
especially with epilepsy, because if you're an adult with epilepsy and your seizures aren't under control, you can't get a driver's license. A lot of people don't know that, right? So if somebody, I don't, in Wisconsin, I think you have to be 6 months seizure free before
So
you
they get a
can
license, yeah. So that kinda
license.
limits,
So,
yeah, limits
so
your
how can you
mobility.
how can you work? You got to take the bus, So having a way for people to access the show who can't get out easily is very important to us too.
Yeah, because that would mean, like, sometimes people have epilepsy, they might have to have, like, work from home options to make it more usable. They might have to have accommodations, and so there's, like, all these things that some people might not think about
That's
because
right.
they're not, like, in that situation, but when you have people that have, needs, other people, they can't understand those because they can't put themselves in the other person's shoes, And
No
hopefully
empathy.
events like yours, the educational, informative, and fun because you come and you see the bands you want to get into, but you also you're learning something. And
Yeah,
so that's you sneak the learning in.
and and there will be people in the crowd standing next to you that will have epilepsy, and you can see that they're not weird and they're not contagious, they're
Yeah,
not
yeah, that's a problem.
dangerous, they're not those things. And it's just, that's part of it too, is it's like, oh yeah, it's just like you and me, that's all, and
Yeah,
that
I get
the
people get too
demystifying
scared
it.
they're gonna catch something. Yeah, you have cancer. Like some folks is like, it's not a virus.
Right.
But people act like it's a virus. And some people
That's right.
I think the idea of the mortality of it is the virus. The
Oh,
virus keeps in
that
your head, that,
fear, yeah, fear is the virus.
because
Yes,
if
agreed.
somebody who's 27 is potentially more mortality than if you're 27, you have to think. And when you're 27, you don't want to think about immortality. You
It's
want to
almost
just
a
think you're gonna
concept
live
you
forever.
can't get.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
you're
that's
right.
off putting. And I think that's what people when they see something that they don't expect or don't understand or don't want to understand, because it's like they it's like, oh, I don't want to have that in my life right now. But some people do have that in their life right now. So you
Yeah,
need to be a little bit more willing to like have
empathetic.
those open.
Yeah, and help. There's, and this doesn't apply just to epilepsy. It applies to any of these chronic illnesses. If there's a way that if you can't help with your time and you can't help with your dollars, don't be a negative on it as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Not everybody has the same capacity to. There's lots of different ways to help, I guess is what I'm saying. And it's not.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, we happen to be choosing a financial way with research, but you can volunteer. There's so many other things
Yeah,
you
you
can
put your
do.
time is money. So if you volunteer and like that's what you have and you show up and you start like saying, "Hey, I can give my time."
Right,
Like if you give a lot of time, then you can
right,
move the needle. So it's like
and
you can
well,
like all the people
and
doing.
it that's right. And it's less money that the support organizations need to spend. If you need to do a Meals on Wheels or you need to drive people around, if people don't volunteer, then the organizations that do that have to spend money,
You have to
right?
spend
If
money, but if
people
you
will
volunteer
volunteer, then they can spend that money on other things in their program.
on the
So
science, like if you could go and do the things, then you can put the money toward the research, and then that's like good money spent when you give it to the science people. Yeah,
That's exactly right. We're as grateful for our events. We call them in-kind donations. People can't donate money, but they donate food or their time to work the merch stand. That's just as valuable to what we do. Or if you're the Epilepsy Foundation that does like an adult camp, if you can volunteer,
mhm.
so there's so many ways people can help that don't involve necessarily money and that can really help. I mean, I'm sure organizations need help stuffing envelopes for mailings. There's lots of ways people can
Oh
help.
yeah, you can find people who can help wherever they are, and
That's right.
that's really cool because some folks is like, well, what can I do? Well, find out.
Just make a call, talk to the executive director of the local chapter of whatever moves you and say,
Yeah,
what do you need? You'd be surprised. Oh, we need help filing. We need help making
yeah.
copies. I mean,
You find something.
yes.
You find
Yeah,
something that will move the needle. I think it's really cool
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
because I have, a lot of background in music,
Yep.
but I really, like, was drawn to the idea of these supergroups, the fact that you have this live, it's not super rehearsed. So that to me is very I like vulnerability when I deal with artists, and artists that are willing to be a little vulnerable. It
Yep.
usually means you're gonna get a big payoff. Because when
Yes.
you go to see something like that, it's gonna be beautiful,
Right.
and
It hits you right in the heart.
yeah, because then it's authentic. It's not some, like, super rehearsed thing where they're trying to do, like, all the steps, in a row and everything's tight, tight, tight. That has its place where you're trying to do
Absolutely.
something, but there's other places where it's like, I kinda wanna know this is a happening. This is a cool kind of feeling. This is a freeform fusion, like, event. This is like a
Yeah.
Woodstock. I'm gonna just riff it. I'm gonna do it. I'm having fun with the crowd. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And watching those people interact. I'll tell you one quick behind the scenes story. So last year for our benefit was the same night of the Packers Bears playoff game. And if you'll recall, the Bears beat the Packers, and that's a big rivalry. Well, behind the drum kit, we had a TV set up so people could be watching the Packers game. while it was going on. And you could see if people were watching the artist in front, there's a whole group of people behind the drum kit raising their hands or cheering, or it's a moment with people. And I cherish that just as much, because it's just a bunch of people. And we had Bears fans and we had Packers fans, and the Bears fans ended up being happier that night. So.
Yeah, we go sports is you have your
Yeah.
things going on, but
Yeah.
everybody gets together and like,
Yeah. And my point was, to your point, it's real. It's a happening. It's in the moment. It's not rehearsed. It's not, it's where's this going to go? And that's
yeah,
the beauty of
yeah,
it.
that's the beauty of it. When some folks, maybe don't like that. They like the radio friendly perfect thing,
Yeah.
because that's what they've been kind of primed
Yeah.
for. But there's a whole generation of like people. I said there's a lot of young people that are starting to find that all this pre-programmed perfect
Right.
stuff that's it's too antiseptic, doesn't feel real, feels staged, doesn't feel authentic. They want something that's going to move their soul, move their heart, make them feel something, not just
Right.
feel like, oh, it's my background music for me going on my jog.
Right.
Or is it something I'm actually going to sit down and actually digest and understand and feel?
And
Like
listen
music can have
to
different
an, yeah.
purposes, but yeah, they can get the
Listen to an
purpose.
album from track 1 on side A all the way to track 8 on side B, and listen to the story that the artist is trying to tell you.
Yeah, our musicians are trying to tell stories, and if you only listen to their hit, you're missing the
Right.
point. And I think some of the people in this playlist world is kind of giving people short shift on who an artist really is. So if you go see an artist play for an
That's
hour
right.
or 2 hours, you know who they are, right? If
That's
you
right.
listen to the record, you know who they are. If you just listen to what's on the playlist, you don't know who they are. So I encourage people to go to events like this and really dive into the live music scene, and also the support, scene where people are actually doing like these events to help overcome loss and
Yep.
epilepsy with music. That's the kind of thing where you can get into. Is like, hey, this isn't just to make somebody a billionaire. This is actually to make somebody help people.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. That's a great way to say it.
Well, I want to thank you for being on the Family Like the Ghost podcast. I love the time that you took here to come and talk about your subject here, and I'm glad that people took the time to listen. We're going to push this out to the world. We've been live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick, and we'll be on all the other platforms you can listen to or watch a podcast by the end of the day tomorrow. But I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you for your time. I feel like you and I could do this for another 3 hours. I don't know if anybody'd want to listen, but I feel like you and I could do this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we know a lot of cool music, and a lot of cool guys, so that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Jody Stevens, like, I'm a Big Star fan. I never get to hear people actually like push Big Star, so that was like my day. Benefit of the day.
Fantastic.
Big Star is like it's on my list. Is like I listen to Big Star like every week. I'm listening. I go in to pull something out because Alex, and Chris Bell is like and Jody is like I listen to their stuff like all the time. So
that I am the Cosmos stuff that they put out. Chris Bell.
Oh yeah, Chris Bell's like I Am the Cosmos record. That's another one. That's like the 4th Big Star.
Amen to that.
Well, thank you again. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.